Hello world, welcome to this road trip about Android Auto. My name is Carlos Mota and I want to invite you and saying thank you for being here. I know that we're almost on lunchtime, so I will try not to go over my time. And let me just show you an application that I've built, which is using Android Auto. This is a porting of an existing app, Confetti app. On San Francisco, you can get more information about a specific talk, add it to the bookmarks. You can see the list of speakers. Now you're going to see me on the big screen. Hello. You can get more information about me, and of course you can also navigate to this Droidcon. Since we're talking about an app for the car, it makes sense that we have a navigation mode. Of course, that from Portugal there's no road to San Francisco, so I needed to catch the plane, and I decided to give this to the pilot so he can know the best way to San Francisco. So, once again, hello. Thank you for being here. And just to give a bit of information about me, my name is Carlos Mota. You can find me on Twitter at @cfonsmota. I've been developing for Android for the past 13 years, and now that I'm saying it out loud, it sounds like a bit. For the past 5, I've been working really hard also with Kotlin multi-platform and advocating it. I've been writing at Codecodev, and I love to travel, photography, and running, and I'm really thrilled to be here at Droidcon San Francisco and breathe a bit of this technology vibe that we only have here on San Francisco. I'm trying this out, so I've used Linktree to have the presentation and all the resources, the source code, everything. So instead of getting resources from a lot of places, you can find all of them here. You can just scan this QR code or go directly to the link. And I'm keeping this updated, so in the future, if I find some cool links about auto, you can just access here, and they're all here. But let's talk a bit, before going for auto, a bit about Android. So, who has an Android here? Let's just put your hands up. Okay, I'm seeing 2 people that have an iPhone. I'll keep looking at you. So we've got Android everywhere, basically. We've got our Android devices, our Android phones, we've got the tablet, we've got the foldables now, we've got the watches, we've got a fridge that can also run Android, which is clearly amazing that we can run Android everywhere. We've got TVs, laptops, and of course, we've got cars. And I'm going to use this animation throughout this presentation because I felt it was just made for here. So let's talk a bit Android for cars. So by average, people spend, and of course this is the average people, spend 600 hours per year in the car, which can easily be translated to 25 days of 12 months, so almost an entire month of your year is spent inside the car. And this is a lot of time. Some of this time is spent in like commuting, other times going on road trips with your family, friends, and so on. But in the end, this is a lot of time. And this brings me to a question, which is, what do you do while commuting? And I've asked this question online, and I received a lot of answers, like, I listen to music, I do nothing, I stare at the blank. I listen to podcasts, I sing, I eat, I talk with the other person in the car. Someone answered sleep, and I really hope that that person is the passenger. There are people that listen to audiobooks. Someone said that records a podcast while driving, and I found it like the maximum productivity level. Some people look for radars, for police radars. Some people dance, which is also cool. And some people are always switching between radio stations and end up using podcasts or music. It's also important to mention that although all of these things we can do while commuting, around 36% of the drivers read text and emails while driving. And this means that only on the United States, 26% of all the road collisions happen because people are using their smartphones while driving. And a couple of years ago, this happened because they were sending text or answering calls. Nowadays, most of these values, most of these numbers are because people are on Facebook or in Instagram. They are just lost on their devices. So how can we solve this? And Google has 3 different solutions for this. The first one is the Android Auto, the second one the Automotive, and the third one is the Assistant Driving mode. The first one, as you can see here, this is an head display. Basically, the car has this display. You connect your phone to the car, to this display, and you have a projection of the app that you want to use. So it's the same APK, it works the same way on all these car head devices, and basically you just need to give support. The same look and feel on all cars, so there's no customization. There are a set of templates that you need to use, and that's it. Then there is Android Automotive, and a really important thing here is that Automotive is an operating system. So you can access to the AC inside your car, you can access to the speed, you can control your car inside this Automotive. And it's different than Auto. So for the starters, you don't need to have your phone connected. So it has its own app store. You need to publish a separated app for Android Automotive. The app needs to be installed on your car, and of course you have some level of customization, naming about colors and styling. And of course you also have the Assistant Driving mode. This typically is built in inside maps, and basically it wants to give you shortcuts for common actions. So imagine that you listen a lot of Spotify. You can easily open Spotify from here. You can also access your favorite contacts to make a call, and it has all support for voice commands, so you don't keep looking at the phone. You can just speak, and the app does everything for you. It's also not available on all countries, and it requires Google Maps installed in order to work. Why is this important? Google is building this in order to limit user distraction, so the user can be with his or her eyes on the road, to have a set of voice-enabled commands to make these actions quick, and in the end to make a more enjoyable and safe ride. We all want to get to our destination. So let's talk a bit about Android Auto. So to start, this means that by the end of this year, it's expected to have more than 200 million devices running Android Auto. This means that you can have more than 200 million people using your own app. So the market share is quite big. These are just a couple of examples. So on top we've got for music Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, New York Times, BBC, weather apps, messaging like WhatsApp, Telegram, Google Maps, Waze. You've got also IoT solutions like Home Assistant. You've got Game Sex, if I'm not mistaken, for when you're parked. So you can use it if your car is parked. And briefly, we're going to have Zoom, Teams, and the Weather Channel, and the Cisco Messaging app. And of course, you've got our Confetti app that we've gave support for Auto. And what is Confetti? So basically, we've been using the DroidCon app, and Confetti is just an app that gathers all the conferences out there, and you can just see the schedule, you can see the speakers, you can bookmark them as favorites. It's just an app for all conferences. And we gave support for Android Auto with this app. So the app already existed, and I just needed to implement the templates for it. Let's see how this can be done. So before, why is this important? It empowers drivers with your app. They don't need to take the device off and they can see it on the screen. There is a new market that you can reach, and of course, it's easy to implement. It took us a couple of hours just to have everything ready, so it's really, really simple, and once again, there is a new market out there. How can you do this? There is a really cool thing called Android Car Auto Library. Android Auto Car Library, which has a set of templates that are already optimized for the UI, for the computer screens, and it has already built-in responsive screen sizing. And we're talking about Android, so this means that we have a lot of different car head displays. So we've got this here, but we also have those that have a bigger height than width. We've got devices that don't have the same ratio, so there's already a lot of fragmentation on these devices. And thankfully, Google already gave support for this, so if you're using these templates, they will run the same way on each one of these devices. They also handle the user input for us, so you don't need to add click listeners, handle user actions. This is already all built in, you just need to use it. How can you do this? Quite simple, just need to use the library. It's currently on 140 alpha 01. And there are a couple of things that you need to do if you want your app to appear on the tablet. So the first one is you need to define 3 different sets of metadata. The first one, you need to say that your application is going to be run on the car. The second one is that you need to say what type of car application you're building. So in this case, we're going to use templates. I've set templates. If I was going to build a podcast app, I'm going to say that instead of template, it's going to be media. Now that we've got this defined, we need to define the theme that we're going to use. In this case, we're just going to use the default. And finally, we need to say which car version are we supporting. In this case, I'm saying that I'm supporting since version number 1, but we're currently on version number 6. So if you want to use a component like the tab layout, you might increase this number to 6, or at least give the user the chance to use a different component if it's running on a lower version. Now that we've got the manifest all taken care of, I told you that I was going to use this animation a couple of times. When you create an app for the car, you need to define a set of categories. And once again, Google guidelines are really strict on what you can do, because in the end, we don't have to have more road collisions, we want to have less. So there are a couple of categories. For instance, we have media, namely for audio, like audio players, radio, podcasts, etc. We've got navigation, we've got messaging, that what it does is read our message out loud as a notification, and you can reply to it. You've got, for instance, point of interests, which is the category that we selected for the Confetti Auto app. You've got Internet of Things. Imagine that you're arriving home and you want to open your garage door and you just need to click on a button, which is great. And you've got video and game apps if your car is parked. So how does this work? So basically you need to define a service, a car app service. And when you click that button, this car app service is going to be called. What it does is, in this case I called it Confetti Car App Service, and in this case I defined it as this action, and the category was selected as point of interest. And immediately after I've defined this, you can see the app on the right corner here, which is on the tablet. If you don't define the metadata along with this service, we won't be able to see the app. Also, it's important to mention that you need to do this uppercase. If you don't write it uppercase, your app is going to be rejected from the Play Store. Trust me that this happened a couple of times before I understanding that the problem was that it should be uppercase. After you clicking the app and the app is going to be launched, it's going to call the create host validator, meaning that if your app can run on that device, because you can block to just run on a specific set of devices, and once it passes, it's going to call on create session, and from this on create session calls on create screen, and you're going to load the template that you want to load. In this case, I'm using the list template to just show a set of conferences. So basically, if you look at the code, it should be something similar to this. You have a list of allowed hosts, and if it's true, it's going to call on create session, that will call on create screen, and then we'll call the conference screen, which is going to be a list. So let's talk a bit briefly about auto templates. So these templates are designed for driving. They have really strict implementation rules. So imagine that if you want to add an icon, this icon sometimes you cannot add it, and you need to add a back action. You need to set, if your app is fetching that, you need to set it as loading. So there are some strict rules that you need to follow, but all of these rules are to discourage distraction. So this is the list of templates. You've got list, grid, sign in, message, long message, search, tab, place list, map template, a list of numerous templates that you can use on your apps. And imagine that you want to create a list template, something as simple as this, which on our app corresponds to the list of conferences. So to do this, you're going on that on create screen. What you're going to do is just call the builder for list template. You define the app name, so the title that you want to show on top. You define that you want to show the icon, and you're going to send a list to it. And how this list is built, you just need to call item list builder and add the items that you want to add to the list. In this case, the conference name. So this is as easy as it gets. Now imagine that you want to have a grid instead. So from this grid, instead of calling this list template, you call the grid template and the grid item builder. And you've got instantaneously a grid. Of course, you can also define text and image here. There is no image library for this, so basically you need to just fetch the images, and once this image is retrieved, you need to call invalidate just to refresh the screen with the new images. This is a limitation that we have, but we can easily overcome it by calling invalidate and show it the new image. And that's it. So once again, it's important to mention that there are a couple of restrictions. Some templates have mandatory properties that you need to set. There's a maximum number of items per template. For instance, you cannot show all your contact lists. You cannot show hundreds of contacts there. What you need to do is to show the contacts that you talk with more frequently. Or you can add a voice action to call someone specifically. Also, when you navigate through the app, you need to do it in 3 steps. Otherwise, it seems that you're taking too long and the app is killed by the operating system. So what if there is no template for my use case? And this might happen a couple of times. You can also request it to Google, or can you please get the video? I'm joking. So there are a couple of ways to do a couple of things. For instance, I wanted to have an image full screen, and this wasn't allowed. There was a request at Google's side, and I needed it to be available fast, and I didn't get an answer from Google, so I decided to see how could I do this. And it's quite easy to implement your own templates. Once again, you need to follow the guidelines, and there is no guideline that says that I cannot have a full screen. So you can create a surface canvas and draw directly on it. So you need to use the navigation template for this. You can easily call this surface callback, and when the surface is available, you're just going to draw a bitmap on the canvas. You give it the width, the height that you want, and that's it. Now, when the onCreate screen is called, you just need, for instance, to set the surface callback. And once again, you need to call the navigation template for this, and you can have something like this. So I was able to have an image full screen, although there was no template for this. I've got here a message in red, so this is really important. Although this is possible to be done, once again, you need to follow the design guidelines. And if you're not following them, Google might reject your app, so it's really important that you follow them. So how to run this? You can run it, of course, on the emulator, the desktop at Unity. You just need to install it, available on Android Studio. You can find something like this, the car at unit that you can buy, or you can test directly on the car. Cars that already have Android Auto built in. So a couple of lessons learned, and I know that we're almost on lunchtime, so templates aren't composable. So a couple of things that you're already used to, like image vector, aren't available, so you need to add your drawables. There is no direct solution to fetch image. You need to implement this yourself, and once again, when you have the image, call invalidate so the screen is refreshed. Some templates might not exist. You can create your own, once again, be mention of the design guidelines, and not all templates are backward portable. For instance, the tab template only exists in API level 6. You also need to be careful with minifying the R8. You need to use keep on ProGuard for the car app library. It's really important to read the documentation, otherwise you're going to have a couple of crashes of some things that you weren't expecting. For instance, define the title, define the icon, all of those small things that you need to define. Yeah, they're all on the documentation, and basically if you're not following them, your app will be killed by the system. And of course, see the examples of Confetti and other ones that exist on Google repo. Some quick key takeaways: simplicity is key. Don't try to add everything to your Android Auto. Just give it the basic use cases that it will allow the user to interact it. Add voice input actions to keep it easier. Your app needs to adapt to the car and not the other way around. For instance, the first version that we had with Confetti, we showed all the conferences, but we didn't show the map to navigate to the conferences. And Google rejected our app because of that. So we then added a map with all the conferences, with the distance to it, and the app was accepted without any issue. And also keep the task flow short. So we're talking about Android Auto, and just to have one more thing moment, you can also have Android Automotive, and it's quite easy to have your existing Android Auto app on Automotive. For this, you just need to add the Automotive target. You can do it on File, New, and select Automotive, and you create a library now for the code that you are added on your app. You move the code from your app to this library, and we import the library. You can see on this link how you can do this with source code. And if you want to see, this is the same app that was built initially for the Auto, which is also running on Android Automotive without any problem and without doing anything more. So once again, you had an app that you could easily port to Automotive without doing anything. It's using the templates, it's being accepted on the Play Store, and it's going to reach those 200 million users that have Car Auto on their cars. So I think we have 1 minute for questions.